My name is Sean Peel.
DK Lee.
This is Getting Past the Subtitles. We try to bring you everything Asian movies, discover and discuss. And this time around, it's family dramas, actually.
Yes.
So an interesting little dive. This is the second movie.
Yes.
And
my second movie.
Yeah, our second movie. It just followed this new trend of like Lee first and then me.
Yeah, it's been like
he
that.
He tends to pick the old stuff.
I know, right? I tend to look to the past. I think Sean kind of looks to the future a little bit more.
I found art in history. So
yeah. So
we did what was it? A Time to Live.
And A Time to Die.
Yeah, so in the 80s, and then now we're in 2008 with Tokyo Sonata, and this is also definitely a family drama.
No, yes,
for sure,
for sure,
for sure. So far, we're pretty consistent with this. We were a little worried in the beginning, but I think we're hitting it on the head. Mm-hmm. Any first things like off your chest that
I was pleasantly surprised by this film.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I too was like, this wasn't what I necessarily expected from this kind of movie.
Yeah, there are many little moments I think that really kind of made me constantly engaged in the film, and just I think it was well written in the sense that you never really know what happens next. Kind of, you're not really sure what's gonna happen next, and I think that was a testament to the writing. But yeah, that's my first, I guess, little impression of this film.
Yeah, what a movie, I guess is what I have to say.
Yeah.
It in the way of like it steered my expectation like off course. And I have a question for it too later on, but like one of them is just like, at what point did you pull back and just ask, how did we get here?
Yeah.
Like
right? It has a very subtle like movement towards unraveling and dismantling of the family. That's very like,
it's like a weird descent into chaos kind of thing, but
it's so subtle that like you're like, what just happened?
You don't realize how crazy it is until you have a pullback moment,
and you just kind of feel like, am I watching a movie, or like am I watching like a play, or like a some kind of like drama? Yeah,
like I don't know.
Yeah, like it just kind of like fades or dissolves into this other kind of thing at the end. And I was very like kind of confused, but like enjoying the moment and the process.
I think it's like because it's really normal in the beginning, right?
Very normal.
And so it sticks to a genre, you can say. It sticks to convention really well in the beginning, and it just is like, as a movie. And then by further down the line, like genre has left the station, and then the movie is completely unconventional, and then you're just wondering, what am I watching at this point?
Funny enough, I think if I can kind of see a little bit of comparison to like Parasite, in the sense of like, if they went a little more crazy, they could have gone into Parasite territory. I feel like. Maybe. Like within the family dynamics and just like even like if they kind of tweaked it and made the characters act a little bit more more like
sociopathical.
Yeah. if there was a Korean flair to this, it definitely would have become something a little bit more akin to Parasite. But you can definitely feel the Japanese influence. I think the culture and the style in this film, and it was really well done in the sense that like you can really feel and understand kind of the dynamic that goes on in that family, and just how Japanese they are.
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, it's so normal in the beginning, and it really takes you into like establishes the family really well, like you said, and you kind of understand that unit and like kind of everybody's role, you can say, in the family,
right?
And then just it constantly just like picks apart it, and then just completely dismantles the entire family by the end. And so it's like just no more family unit, just like that kind of traditional sense is gone by the end. So what did we watch? Because this just sounds like madness to anybody who's pitching in.
Well, hopefully they watched
you watched it. Mad spoilers ahead, as usual. So this was directed by Kurosawa Kiyoshi in 2008. So why don't you tell us what kind of the plot is?
Sure. So the beginning, it starts off with the father of the family, and we start at his workplace, and basically he gets laid off, and so he has no more job, but he can't really tell his family or his wife because he feels kind of shameful, or he has a feeling of like a duty to support the family and take care of the family, but since he lost his job, he kind of feels like he's let them down, so he doesn't want to tell them. So he basically doesn't tell them and acts like he's working there. And he every day he acts like he's going to work, but then he's actually in the park getting free food from the homeless. Like, I'm not sure exactly what they're, but like they're kind of like the people who take care of the homeless, or like people who need food, and they always come out and they give food. So he goes online and he gets food, and he goes to the unemployment support center, and he tries to find a job there, but he kind of fails at that too. And then in the midst of that, he meets like a old friend who also lost his job, and who also acts like he hasn't lost a job, because he also has a family and he doesn't want to fail them. And so they kind of become this duo, and they just go around. Yeah. And so that happens, and then they're kind of wandering around, and then later on, the father, who's Sasaki, right? He hears that the friend kills himself and his wife in a dual suicide because of that. And so after that point, I think everything kind of starts really unraveling. Right. And Sasaki finds a job as a cleaner at a mall. And so it's really, if I'm just going through one person, it's kind of hard because like there's so many different threads that go along with this. So like while that's happening, like I think we just stepped into kind of like the family in total kind of area, because that's, I think, right when his friend starts something, Kurosawa, when Kurosawa dies, I think then everybody else in the family, like it starts to get more interesting with them. Right. They kind of take a backseat before that. Right. I mean, like Kenji, his younger son, he kind of is a troublemaker at school, and like he has problems with the teacher, and he like calls the teacher out and like embarrasses him. So the whole like classroom is like revolution, like we can overthrow the teacher kind of thing. While Kenji kind of is like, I don't really care about that. Yeah. But then he takes an interest in playing piano. But then his father, he's so caught up in his job and losing his job that he just needs to maintain this like facade of authority. Right. And so he's trying to, when Kenji says, can I, learn the piano? He says no. And so, he's that typical father who's very like stern and like kind of reining everyone in kind of thing. Right. And since he lost his job, he's even more on edge, right? And so that's kind of Kenji's like thread, where he tries to learn piano, but since his father says no, he uses the lunch money that he gets every month to secretly pay for piano lessons, where I guess there's a neighborhood some teacher who happens to be there, and he learns from her. And also there's the older son, who's also kind of a rebel in a certain sense, where he just kind of goes out. He comes home late, and he kind of has no purpose in life. And I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to find some kind of purpose and some kind of reason to live. And so that also clashes with his father again. And so in the end, he decides to go to the military, but the American military, and he feels like he can live a good life, or live a life, kind of purposeful life, by enlisting in the army. And the wife also has an interesting roller coaster of of a life.
Sasaki-san.
Yeah, she seems very sweet and she is very sweet, and she lives a very typical housewife kind of life. But then things slowly start to deteriorate as she finds out. Like she's walking around and she sees Sasaki on the food line in the park, and so when she realizes that he lost his job, she also kind of falls into this rabbit hole of weird. I think she has the weirdest segment or scenes. But yeah, she also is trying to maintain this family unit, like trying to hold. I think she really is the glue that tries to hold everything together, and she is definitely so much sweeter to the children, and tries to kind of take their side and is actually able to communicate with them, and is trying to mend things together. But the relationship between the father and the mother is kind of aloof, to say the least. And so she finds out, and like because of all these household things, like the problems with the children and the father, she also is like, why are you like getting mad at them? Why are you hitting them? And like, things happen, right? And then
shit hits the fan.
Yeah, things all go wrong, right? And she's like at home, and then all of a sudden, some robber comes out of nowhere, and like he takes her hostage, and like she ends up going through this weird like adventure. Right. That's a kind of weird way to say it, but it is an adventure that she goes on to kind of like wonder about the meaning of her life, and wonder about if she can kind of start over again, is I think the wording that they used. But she basically gets a car and she drives around, and she drives around with the robber, and they kind of begin to understand each other in a certain sense, because the robber is unable to steal from her, and also she kind of realizes like he's not the best at this, and also she realizes like she's not in the best of position as well, and she can kind of relate to that failure, I guess, in a certain sense. And so she goes along with him, and then they end up at a beach or like the seaside, and weird things happen. But then weird things happen. And so after that, basically,
like really at the same time as that is like peak, I guess, descent kind of, you can say. Like that's when everybody kind of is at their peak of failure.
Yeah. So like Kenji, like he was trying to like escape. He's trying to like run away, and he gets caught by the bus ticketing people, and basically he goes to jail. But then the people just lets him go at the end. And so he comes back home. The wife, what I told you, like she goes to the seaside, and then in the morning she comes back home. The husband, he
gets hit by a
so what happens is, at the mall he's like cleaning, and he finds like a bag of money, or like a envelope of money, and he has this moral quandary of like, should I keep it or should I take it? And like while he's like trying to run away, he meets his wife for a split second, but after seeing her, he runs away. And as he's running away, like
to God knows where.
Literally to God knows where, it becomes nighttime, and like he basically gets hit by a car. And then in the morning he comes back home. And then they all come together.
And he doesn't keep the money. He puts it in a literal lost and found in the middle of the city.
Yeah. like somebody's gonna give that back to, might as well just keep it at that point, man.
It looked like a Salvation like army
like
thing.
the clothing.
Just threw it in there.
Clothing box thing. Anyway, so all the family, they come back together in the house that, was just like this, basically just like
except for the oldest son.
Right. This oldest son is, out of the picture. He's basically in, I guess the Middle East, because he gets enlisted in the...
He gets enlisted into the American army, and then they basically go to war in the Middle East, wherever. And then they said that, like, it kind of plays on the news that, like, then they decided to bring the troops back home, essentially, especially the ones from Japan, from which Takagi volunteered for. But Takagi sends a letter home and saying, actually, I'm going to be a terrorist now.
Well, I'm not sure if that was the implication.
It was, to me, that was a pretty hard implication. He said, I figured out that America is not the only one who's right, and that he says, like, those people, or like, he doesn't say it specifically.
Right, he's trying to understand them better.
Exactly.
Basically.
Like the people of the Middle East, essentially, like the other side he's fighting.
But I mean, I don't think that means he's going to become a terrorist, though.
Well, he was like, he's going to help them and stay with them and kind of understand them.
Right.
Yeah.
But it could just be the people who are living there, not necessarily
Could
like,
be, but
I'm going to become a terrorist.
who knows?
Because the implication there wasn't really like that, so I don't know.
I just took it to hardcore.
Yeah, you kind of like,
He's like,
ran with that one.
AWOL.
Yeah. I don't think he went AWOL. That's what I think. Because like, I don't think he would be that casually just sending letters in.
Right. I mean, technically, I'm pretty sure he would have went AWOL, but.
Yeah, there would be big problems if he went AWOL. I don't think he can just send letters like that. But anyways, that's what happened to the older son. And so they all come back together in the morning and they just act like nothing happened. And they just eat together.
Yeah.
And basically, 4 months later, Kenji has this audition for going into like conservatory, basically, for piano. And so the parents come to the audition and they watch and they just kind of bask themselves in the beautiful music and kind of have, I guess, I guess it's up to interpretation, but for me, I interpret it as them kind of coming to a realization of just being a family in a certain sense, or just learning to appreciate life in a certain sense, or maybe being happy or being thankful for what they have, and kind of seeing Kenji playing so well and seeing all these people like surrounding him, and they just kind of come off like nothing happened. It's just like whatever. But I think in that, there is a certain kind of like togetherness and purpose that they kind of find there,
right.
Which I think was a very fitting ending for this film.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting ending, and it is pretty fitting. I tried to look up like some interviews with Kurosawa and just get like some insight on the movie. But like what he was saying is near the end of the movie, kind of once everybody is back home into a family again, everybody, once they're like at their lowest before coming home, they kind of all have the realization of what was it? I wrote it down. Just like, wanting to start over, basically, you know?
They all want,
they all kind of want to reset their lives and pretty much just start over and swipe blank, because everything that happens before just goes to wreck, essentially. And so everybody comes home and they do act like sort of nothing happened, and it's a very like backseat kind of quietness between them, but with like a newfound appreciation of, again, wanting to start over and kind of pushing past what happened, and then just accepting kind of new things. And I think Kenji's recital, or like his audition, is a very good like representation of that,
Yeah, like turning over a new leaf kind of thing.
Right. After, even like especially his arc, and like after how the entire family interpreted it and reacted to it as well. Yeah. So it definitely kind of drove that point home as well. Mm-hmm. And it's very like, and besides just kind of that analysis, just like the scene itself it's so weird going from like the weird like mad craziness that happens a scene before, and then to go into that audition and it's just like
tranquility.
Yeah, just like the most peaceful, like quiet, like the shots are not movement, like they're just still, like it's just that one wide shot of Kenji like
and then
playing,
just the reverse POV of the parents just watching it.
Yeah, like the casual cutaways of like the teacher and other people. But it's just like all pretty still, and like the entire song plays out too in that thing. So It's pretty like interesting in a weird kind of calming way.
Yeah, I think the pacing of the film was really well done
Yeah.
in the sense that like you can really feel it ramp up, and when it ramps up after the climax, you have this moment of peace.
Yeah. It's like one big like it gives you a breather.
Yeah,
In a way.
kind of like the whole movie is a kind of a musical piece, you know.
Right. Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like kind of running a marathon in a way. Just kind of goes up into this hill. How do you want to go about this? You want to break down like the movie? It's very. I would say like the structure of the movie is very like again kind of like a hill,
Yeah.
and it's very like we said subtle in the beginning, and you don't find yourself like you don't kind of realize what's going on until like you kind of have to pull back in a way. And it's a very like casual descent and then like a decline,
Yeah.
but it's a very kind of moment to moment movie, you know. So
I just enjoyed the different threads, I think, and how they're all individual, right? But then they all intertwine at points. And I think that was really enjoyable to watch. Seeing the different moments of realizations of different characters, especially like the mother finding out about the father being unemployed, or like the mother finding out about Kenji playing piano, or you know, like all these little moments that that intertwine. While like there are also moments where different family members kind of have their own kind of you know thread in the film as well, where it's only about them, or like it's only about what they're doing. And I think that kind of accentuates the feeling of them having their own secret and them having their own lives, where like Kenji, you know, nobody knows that he's playing piano until, you know, the piano teacher sends a letter to the house. And so like he has his own secret. The wife has her own secret when, you know, the robber comes, and like she goes on this weird adventure where she finally gets to use the driver license she got, and she rides that convertible car that she was looking at the car dealer before, and all these different little things that kind of come together.
It's definitely a huge, like, it's a very surprising like payoff kind of movie as well.
Yeah. And the son, I mean, the older son is kind of like the least like there, but it's interesting because he's kind of there in the air. Like he's just like every time the TV comes on, every time the news comes on, like you can kind of feel his presence through the news of like the American like army like doing stuff, or like you know them going to war, like they're talking about this in the news. And so through that you kind of have the presence of the older son.
Yeah. Even before that, like he's a very like Takashi's character is just a word of mouth. I say Takashi, but it's Takashi. He's a very like word of mouth character. Like his presence is always there. Yeah. Even when he is home, we don't really see him because he's never home.
And the father's always like, "Where's Takashi?"
Where's Takashi? Yeah. He's like, "Oh, he went to work," or it's, "Oh, blah, blah, blah," you know. So, and we do see him. It's just these very small glimpses of him, you know.
Yeah.
So like it kind of like like accentuates the fact of him being maybe the most distant family member, you know, compared to everybody else. Whereas like he's part of the family, but he's hardly there, and he hardly communicates with anybody, you know. And he springs up the wanting to enlist out of the blue, and he doesn't even really ask them for permission. He's just like, sign this,
or else I'm gonna have some organization sign it for me.
Or I've got other people to do it for me, but do this, please.
And also Sasaki has his own, you know, little secret, obviously.
Right.
His unemployment.
Yeah, I think the dynamics of that itself was pretty interesting. Just once everybody has their own secrets, but like that thread is once everybody is home, like that's when everybody is under the same roof and in the same scene, you know. Yeah. And even like we understand each's character in their own lives, but then seeing like their facade together, and then it's interesting how they play out and how far they're gonna kind of lie to each other, and how smoothly they can do it. And you know, like the mother, we find out pretty relatively early on that the mom knows about her husband's unemployment.
Yeah.
But yet a few scenes up until like the son Takashi leaves, she acts like nothing. Like she doesn't like she never even seen him.
Not until the father like berates the younger son for playing piano.
Right.
And like he like starts hitting him and stuff.
I mean, before that, when Takashi leaves and he's like, he gets mad at him for wanting to join the American military.
Yeah.
And he walks out and the mom's like, well, I've known about, she says it to him there.
Isn't it at the piano scene?
But the piano scene is after.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought she says it there.
Before that, when Takashi leaves.
Oh.
Yeah. I think it's brought up again after the fact. In that, when with the piano with Kenji.
Yeah.
But she says it. She brings it up because then he's like, I have to be the father and I have to, stand up for, But she's like, screw your father. Yeah, screw your authority. So it's pretty, and it's funny that they don't tell Kenji either. Like Kenji is kind of in the dark with that as well.
Yeah.
Which is understandable, but it's a funny thing to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think since he's a kid, I think the parents are like, maybe he doesn't really need to know this.
Right.
But I think what's interesting though is his friend, his friend who also lost a job. I feel like the daughter, his daughter knew.
Right. Yeah.
Which is why I think when he was like washing his face in the bathroom, and she was like, "Oh, it must be hard for you," and I don't know exactly the meaning of what she meant there. Maybe it was like, it must be hard for you to lie in the house, like straight, like just right in front.
Just BS all of
Yeah, like in front of the family, in front of the wife, in front of the daughter, and like she's just like calling him out on that maybe, because like when he goes to maybe I think it's like the funeral area, like she comes out with some other man and she like stares at him. She gives him kind of a nasty stare. And I just kind of have maybe an inkling that maybe he's kind of like, she's kind of also in a certain sense, like blaming him in a certain sense of like, why didn't you kind of do something for my dad, kind of stop him from doing that maybe. Well, I mean, that's just like, speculating.
Right.
But
I think I kind of felt a little differently, but at the same time, I don't really know how to feel about it, because like the daughter in that response in that scene, it's just so up in the air, and for so many, like it's purposely done that way,
very obviously,
and it's hard for me to like pinpoint on maybe what its intent is, just because like the line is so ambiguous and it could mean so many things.
But like she also like stares at him, like
but
after she comes out of
to me, like that exchange wasn't maybe her blaming him, but maybe
no. I'm not saying that was blaming him. I was just saying like the stare that she gives at the end, like around
that, like you're saying that she's kind of has.
I don't think she's blaming him like to that degree, but just kind of like what were you doing all this time? Kind of look, Sure.
Yeah, I mean, like that to me was more of like a sympathetic kind of exchange in that area, because I don't think that the daughter knew. I think she could have known, because I mean beforehand, Kuro was like questioning like if his wife knew, and he was speculating that his wife did know that he was unemployed. I mean, we never got like the answer straight, and then he invites Sasaki over to kind of like essentially cover that up to make it look like he's working. And then when the daughter comes in and she's like, "It must be hard for you," I took that as like the fact that comparing to her husband, like, because they're like, "Oh, you're working overtime," and the wife is like, "You must be working overtime as well. Like, is the company that busy? Like, is it really tough?"
But I don't know if you would say that just for that,
Yeah, but I mean, because they were saying that her husband Kuro is being like distant in that family household as well. Like she's like, he doesn't talk to me about work when I'm around, to the wife, but especially not the daughter either.
But I don't know why the daughter would say that then. You know what I mean?
Well, I feel like the daughter would say that because like she recognizes that like her dad is being distant, or like it's like maybe work is taking a toll on him,
Maybe.
and that she can assume the same for Sasaki as well. But again, like that, and then there's just so many ways you can kind of interpret that.
I think that's a good way of
right.
leaving it.
It's a interesting matter. But that guy, man, Kuro, he's like the professional like con of being unemployed. We get introduced to him, and he's like, I have my phone to ring 5 times a day to fake out calls. Like I'm actually talking to somebody at work. He knows all the hot spots around town to just sit and do nothing, you know. And and then he's like, they're sitting, and he's like petting that dog. It's like, oh, did you get unemployment insurance? And he's like, I'm filing for it. And he says, oh, just turn in everything on time or they'll defer you. He's like, you got to set up another bank account and then put this so that way no transactions stand out. Like, he's got everything down to a T. So that was just like little things like that kind of accumulate.
Yeah, it's kind of sad to see because it's just like he also has this facade, right?
Yeah.
Of like, he kind of acts like he's fine, like everything's okay. Like, I got this down, like I know what I'm doing. But at the end, like, you know, he kills himself and his wife. So
they're on the same boat, but Kuro's been on that section longer than Sasaki, you know, and it's kind of a foreshadow maybe of what Sasaki would become if he
more like a foil, right? Of what he could be,
right?
If he goes down the same path.
And so once he commits suicide with his wife, that in itself is kind of a realization, like, oh, I can't keep doing this, you know? And that's why he takes the job to be a janitor, even though prior to he refused like any low grade job below than what he was.
Yeah.
So poor guy. And his first assignment is cleaning up that toilet. It's just like destroy.
How do you even get to that state? What do you have to do to like splatter all over the walls, all over like?
Do not eat at that food court. Why?
I'm always confused when things like that happen. Like in real life.
Yeah.
I'm like, what happened here? What monster?
What monster? It wasn't even human. Yeah. It happens. It wasn't even like a Japanese toilet. Like it wasn't even like an East. No. Yep. It wasn't like a regular Western style toilet. Dun, dun, dun. I guess what do you think of like Koji's kind of, or Kenji's kind of like story? At first, when he's like peeking out at the piano teacher, I'm like, oh, he has the hots for the teacher. Oh, yeah. And I was like, he just wants to take class for her. I would have probably preferred that arc than maybe the piano arc.
Really?
Because like he does piano and he's like this prodigy, you know, and then it's kind of the typical, oh, I'm good at it, but my parents kind of hate me thing, and so I give it up. And then he just flats out gives it up, which kind of surprised me a bit. And then,
well, I mean, he didn't really.
Well, he was forced to give it up.
Yeah, he was forced to give it up.
But he still gave it up. Like I still expect him to like rebel and like.
Well, he did rebel. He was trying to run away.
Well, right, but like that's what I'm getting to is why did that? Then it descended to that. Like he got mixed up with his friend, and then he decided to go full rebel, and then skip town on a bus, and then actually goes to jail. Yeah. And then just like,
who
exactly
sends the kid to jail? I don't even understand that part, but
yeah. I mean, the movie breaks a lot of reality thing, you know, like it's a very not reality kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like that, it takes it a little too far for my taste. Like that was definitely just a little too far, where it's comical. But like, yeah, like that whole bit happens, and I'm just like, all right, I think we've gone too far off the edge. You know, I don't know. I would have maybe preferred a taboo romance.
I mean, I think that line is pretty interesting though, where the wife is like, sometimes I wish like, you know, my life right now was a dream, and if I wake up, I'm just a completely different person. Mm-hmm. I think that kind of illustrates kind of that day and just what happened to all those characters, where like for that day they're just some other person, and like all the things that's happening to them is happening to this, you know, other person, where like, you know, crazy ass stuff happen and like you know, like, you know, Sasaki gets hit by a car but wakes back up, and like, you know, the wife like is like just laying in the water and kind of like, you know, going into some delusion.
She discovers an alien.
Yeah.
Maybe. What do you think that was?
I don't know.
There's a light in the sky, and meanwhile, I'm like, what? What light? What light? It's just to wake up the homeless guy. He's like, leave me alone.
Another day after, everything kind of is gone, like disappears.
Yeah.
Like the homeless man is gone. Kenji, is released and he's just walking back home.
Yeah.
Sasaki just wakes back up and, they all just come back home. And I think that's just kind of like, like showing kind of,
Everybody's woken up again.
yeah, woken up again, coming back from that horrible dream or like that nightmare, Sasaki has nightmare and the wife also has a nightmare.
Yeah.
In the scenes where like
Sasaki has a nightmare?
yeah, in the beginning.
Oh.
He's like
yeah.
he's like sleeping and then the wife is like calling him,
Yeah.
but like he's not waking up and she wakes him up.
He's like, you had a nightmare, and he's like,
Oh.
oh yeah.
And then the wife also has like that weird dream
Yeah.
sequence with
Did you think that like actually happened?
I thought it did in the beginning
It got
and then
me so good.
and then it just disappeared.
Worst edit ever for one. Like,
I think that's people do that a lot where like it's just kind of like that like jarring thing where they make it seem like it's happening for real but it's actually not.
I mean, I get it. It's just the way that it was done felt a little sloppy, or I don't know. But really, I think that's a personal issue because I think if there's one thing that I didn't really like was the whole Takashi going to the American Army bit. And then it was just like so like just again with like taking like alternate reality kind of thing, like rules bending like too far in a way that it's almost comical. Like that's just pretty much my reason.
I think those kinds of things kind of made me think of this kind of like as a play. Like it kind of like while I was watching it, it kind of made me feel like I was watching a play.
Yeah.
Where like it kind of feels very scripted and very kind of
Like orchestrated.
yeah, orchestrated and kind of like
For sure.
people, practice really hard to like do this kind of thing.
Get this right. Yeah. I mean, because like in a film sense, I mean, I think there was just definitely better ways to do that story wise.
Yeah, it's not to say that I didn't like it,
Right.
but I just thought it was interesting kind of, and it gave me that kind of feeling.
And I mean, like once that she had that dream, I thought it was real because I mean, just like how far fetched everything else happened, I was like, sure, why not?
Yeah, the only thing that kind of got me was like, why did he come back so early?
Exactly.
So that's why I kind of thought, okay, maybe this is just like a dream.
Yeah. I mean,
Not real.
I just like I bought into it, but I was just like, okay, this is just the craziness with everything.
And then also I was like, if you came back from the army, you wouldn't be that dirty looking. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Why would you not shower before you come back home?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is just kind of stuff like that.
There's no way that the Japanese are going to be enlisted in the American Army anyway. Just, no, thank you. Just,
Anyways, yeah.
but yeah, that just like kind of setting was a little strange. I mean, but I get like Takashi's story, and like his maybe personal dilemma, you can say. And being like, kind of like, I mean, everybody sticks to sort of their, family-esque trope. Like the movie does a good job of like we focus on the husband, the father, Ryuhei a lot, but then by like the second half, everybody has their own spotlight, and it's kind of like split into equal parts. And then it goes to like individually, and then once they're home, it's like that thread. But they all play to like sort of a family trope kind of like dilemma,
archetypes,
archetypes. In a really like the wife usually has like the housewife dilemma of like, oh, my independency, and I want to kind of relive my youthfulness again kind of way. And that's pretty much Megumi's dilemma in the movie. Is like and it's funny because it's not like she dislikes being a housewife either. Like she likes being a mother to the kids and likes playing that housewife role. Just like once like her husband loses a job and everybody else, like her sons kind of are have these dilemmas, then her world starts breaking down as well. And she like, loses the individuality. Like, she wants to drive, but she's not going to drive. She gets a
she
license.
never has a chance to drive, because
Right.
she's a housewife.
She gets a license, but, she can't use it.
Right.
Which, the son was like, "Oh, you have a license." He's like, "Why don't you just use your insurance card?"
Yeah.
And I thought, why would you have an insurance card if you don't even have a card? But then you get your license.
Well, I guess life
insurance.
I don't know.
Like
So other insurance,
house insurance, medical insurance,
medical insurance.
whatever. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, yeah, it was cool to kind of see like how the mother was closest. I think to the oldest son, you know, and
Yes,
they kind of had a certain kind of like ability to communicate with each other like normal human beings,
Right.
and like, you know, like actually like talk about certain things.
Because I do like the conversation before he leaves.
Yeah,
He's
like, you know, why didn't you? Yeah, stuff like that. I also like just kind of like the kind of sweetness that she has towards Kenji when she realizes like he paid with the lunch money for the piano lessons, and she's like, "Oh, I would have just paid for you, you know? Like, why did you lie about it?" And stuff like that. And just kind of, and I liked all the little details in the film, and it was very meticulous in certain ways where like it did a really good job of using certain things as analogies or metaphors for certain things. Like when Megumi, the wife, she goes into she like finally decides to like check in the rooms of the sons, and like she goes into the rooms, and like on the ground like there's like these lines, yellow lines, right, of chalk, and like it's kind of showing like that boundary, right, between, you know, the families, and like how every room has a boundary. Like even in Kenji's room there's that little like white yellow line or whatever, just kind of showing like the boundaries that each, you know, character has with each other. And like she's finally breaking in by like crossing that line. There's also like moments where like they apparently live right next to like a train, like railroad, and I love how like that rumbling of the train kind of like foreshadows like something, you know, bad is about to happen, or like you know, things are about to happen. And like every time that train kind of comes by, you know, it's kind of foreshadowing like, you know, there's some, you know, underlying like issues in this family that, you know, is about to kind of like erupt. And I really liked kind of having that sound of like the ambient sound of the train like coming by every so often in the film. You know, little stuff like that I think really kind of, you know, were really good details.
Yeah, I very early watching it, I was also like, because the movie is very ominous in a way, and it's very like, even in the beginning where it feels like a family drama, it still has a very kind of, I don't know, maybe like an independent kind of feel to it. Like it doesn't feel like a conventional movie in a way. And so I found myself looking at things and questioning all the small things. Like these feel like a metaphor for something deeper, for no, like just, it could be like just a small task or something they do, but just like from the overall movie, it's like that probably has to mean something deeper than what it seems, you know? Like I really liked when right after Ryuhei has dinner with Koru, and he comes home late, and then his wife is sitting on the couch sleeping, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm not gonna eat. I'm gonna go upstairs and take a shower." And she's like, "Somebody lift me up." He's like, "Anybody lift me up?" And she's just kind of sitting there by herself, you know, alone. It's just like something simple like that is a line, but it just really encompasses.
Yeah, just kind of the state that she's in, you know.
Right.
And I really like that scene too, just kind of showing who she is in such a simple, kind of concise way.
Yeah, just like, you know, it shows that she's alone as well. You know, even though they're a family, they're all pretty lonely, since they don't really connect with each other.
Yeah, they don't really share a moment of like, I care for you, I love you kind of thing. They're always kind of like going like outwards against each other, and they're trying to find something outward. And, you know, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it does like a balance of doing that, but then they also still play those family roles and like those dynamics.
Yeah, they try to,
Like when they're like, that's probably the only scene. They all have dinner together, including Takashi's there, and they all have like the dinner at night. And then the father is like, "Oh, I'm gonna get a beer," and then we watch him drink 2 cups of beer before they all eat, but nobody eats before he eats. And like, that just plays to kind of the head of the household as a father and kind of that authority esqueness.
Yeah.
But still counterpoint to like, everything that's going on behind the scenes,
Yeah. I really like that scene too. Just how efficiently they kind of showed that like authority by, doing that little beer scene.
It's a weird thing. What a scumbag though.
Also, what would you think about like the robber and all of that? That whole section, starting from when the robber comes out of nowhere.
Well, yeah, out of nowhere, but like the whole window thing too. Like everybody keeps going through the back window and locking it. Like you should really lock that window.
Well, you said it once in the beginning.
Right. But they're always going like that window's always highlighted. Like it's the first thing we see before the credits roll. Gosh, it's random, honestly. Like just a random guy. Like before he took off his mask, I was like, who is it? Like, is it Takashi? Is it? I wouldn't be surprised. And it's just this random old guy. Yeah. And it's like, you saw my face. Oh, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Yeah. And then he's like, get in my car. And it's the car that she wants. And it's like, of course.
That really felt like a kind of like a dream sequence for me.
Right.
I was like, is this a dream?
Is this real? I mean, they kind of play it off that they don't because he spots his wife before. Yeah. And then.
But it really has dream-like qualities, I feel like. Yeah. Like, especially like when they're in the car and she's like driving. But the way that they shot it, it's like just a front view of them, like the two shot of them. But then the background is like, I think they're using like either like a projector or something in the back. And like she's just driving and kind of like, I think the way that they shot it made it kind of feel more dreamlike. And I think it actually kind of worked.
Very kind of like sitcom-y?
Yeah, it is very sitcom-y. It kind of, like, I don't know if you ever watched That 70s Show, but the opening sequence where they're all just driving in the car, it's kind of like that, where it just kind of feels like that. But because it's such a crazy, like, situation, it kind of works out. Yeah. And I think it was a really good way of shooting that instead of, like, a real kind of, like, car scene.
I mean, once we get there, it's like a descent into, like, just madness and it really, like, everything breaks reality. Exactly. Like, nothing follows rules of tradition. I mean, Kenji gets arrested for crying out loud. Like, he's a literal criminal. I mean, going back to what I thought, I don't know, like, it was weird, and I think I just got lost in, like, the poeticness of it in a way. Like, I got that kind of distracted me and it took me out a bit. Yeah. Like, once they get to the beach, I think I was entertained. The whole beach scene. Yeah, just once they get to the beach, from that on forward, up until they go back home, just like every dialogue is a piece of like poetic lines that she says. Like nothing.
Very like what you said, poetic.
And then they're like, because they go, she gets out of the car.
It becomes metaphorical.
And it's like, oh, is that land? Is that a boat? And he's like, I can't see it. Yeah. I can't see it. Yeah. And then we like cut to night, and
then he's like, "Oh, are you a god?" Or like,
which I expected that line. I was actually, when they were at the boardwalk, I was like, maybe she's gonna be like, "Are you an angel?" And then it flips to him saying it to her, and I was like, I knew this was coming. He's like, "Are you a god?" But I mean, it plays to like the pinnacle of them both kind of just
being delusional.
Yeah, but like exported out of like, I don't know, like their characters away. They're just kind of like lost completely, you know? Like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know who I want to be. Like, I'm kind of sick of this sort of thing. And they're both like at their wits' end sort of deal. And then that's just them kind of like lashing out in a way or whatever. Yeah. And then, like, again, like, I think that may be like the peak play moment, as you kind of refer. It is definitely odd. And then he doesn't even like, he doesn't get a solid ending. It just focuses on her, which makes sense, but
no, the robber.
Yeah, the old guy. He's like, he falls asleep and then she's chasing.
Well, he's not the main point of the story,
right?
So I can understand that. But like his disappearance also kind of makes me feel like, like, it feels very dreamlike, you know. It feels very Like maybe he was never even there, kind of thing.
He was an angel.
He's been. She's the one actually that stole the car, and she's just driving around. There's no homeless man.
She was chasing that weird alien.
There's no robber, block pick robber.
Well, so like what Kurosawa was saying is that scene, sort of her moment there, is really like she needed something, like his character, she needed something to make her realize that she desires her humanity again, and to kind of like have that epiphany outside of being a housewife and a mother, and that deep down that she's really just a person outside of playing those kind of like robotic roles, you can say. Yeah. And so just that whole bit is that just to bring her to that realization up until the end. Yeah. Which is kind of funny because then it even though that does happen, her final decision in the end is just to go back to being that mother, you know? It's like, I don't know, maybe
I think it's kind of cool that I think this journey that each of the characters had kind of bring them to a point of humility where they realize that you know what they had is actually not that bad. You know, and like even when, you know, he lost his job, like there is a way to kind of start over, or like there is a something to appreciate even in the midst of, you know, loss, and even in the midst of uncertainty, and even in the midst of like, you know, and like they actually kind of feel like a family at the end, you know. Even though like I guess problems still might, you know, persist, they still find some kind of common ground to kind of stand on and like appreciate, which in this case was kind of like the music and kind of that, I guess, is a metaphor for, you know.
Yeah, just like the movie ends on a very hopeful note, you know, on that thing that they can carry on, and it is hopeful in that sense. Yeah. Like, because like you said, those problems didn't disappear. Like they're still there and probably still fresh at that, like 4 months. It's not that long, you know. And like even like the son, Takashi's still out in the Middle East, and like all those things still have the baggage there, but they kind of look to a new light.
Yeah. I think it's cool because it's like their situation hasn't changed all that much, but because their perspective kind of changed, the way that they look at life changed, like they're able to appreciate what they have more, you know. And I think that's a really cool kind of, you know, I don't know if that was the message, but that's kind of what I felt as I was watching it.
Yeah, because I mean, Radiohead is still working as a janitor.
Right, he's still working. Yeah, it's not like he finally got some kind of like good job, like crazy good job. He's still working as a janitor, but the way that he approaches that work is different, you know?
I got that sense too, like once he's doing it. It felt like, I don't know, he had pride kind of.
Yeah, he's like actually like working hard to do what, you know, he has. And I think that's really a cool thing to do, you know?
Nice story. Story. I feel like we've tackled most of these questions. Saying that the movie is pretty very interpretational, and sort of what those interpretations are. We've pretty much tackled that. There's a few. I feel like maybe the movie had a few commentaries on various topics. Kind of like, what do you think those topics are?
I had a feeling that this movie kind of portrays Japanese families as very hidden, like from each other, and like they all have problems, like very big problems, or like it, like none of the characters in this story are without problems. You know what I mean? Even like the side characters, where like the piano teacher, she's going through a divorce. Kenji's friend, he also is a rebel. Like he has problems with his, you know. And like the teacher, Kenji's teacher, you know, he has his own issues. He's getting bullied by his classroom. You know, and so like it kind of portrays like Japanese life in kind of a very bleak kind of like nothing is good, like there's problems everywhere kind of thing.
Bleak but like equal footing kind of.
Kind of, yeah. But yeah, so in that sense, you know, it has that kind of bleakness to it, but the ending kind of gives it a certain kind of hope.
Right, right.
So I don't know if that was his commentary on Japanese life or like Japanese family life. But recently I watched like I forget where I watched it, but this Japanese dad, he made like a rotating like a sushi bar kind of thing for his son. Yeah, so like he can then like he created like a little bar kind of thing where like they like serve like udon and like ramen and stuff like that, like a little cart kind of thing, and the rotating like sushi thing, and like he's like serving his son, and just kind of seeing that kind of made me very like wholesome. Like yeah, it was very wholesome, and so like kind of seeing that is a very different mood from this film, and like a different kind of family dynamic, and I think a lot of, I guess, Asian families kind of tend to have that stereotype of like the father is very silent and like he just goes to work and is the breadwinner and like comes back home and his only job is to like make money for the family and support the family and like protect the family and like be stern and be the disciplinarian, and the mother is just kind of like listens to the father and like whatever the father says kind of goes, and like she kind of has to follow it and stuff like that. But I think it varies, family life varies very much. So
it's funny to like the through line of this movie and when we talk about A Time to Live and A Time to Die, that it still maintains the whole facade thing that we were saying, like every character has a life outside of home, but they keep them separate like very strictly as well, and it's just a two-faced thing of one life is outside of home and then there's someone else living inside of home, and that when they kind of get mixed together, things fall apart.
And there's never an element of like cooperation in the family, you know what I mean? Like it's always like even like I guess for an example, like Takashi, right? Yep. When he comes home and when he like gives the papers, it's not like, oh, can you please sign this for me? It's like, sign this for me because I'm going to go to the army, you know what I mean? Right. And so like it's always like a kind of like a command or kind of like a proclamation that I'm doing this. And like no one knows what you were thinking. It's just like all of a sudden like this is happening. Like even Kenji, he's like, I'm gonna play piano. Like no one, there's no discussion, there's no conversation, there's no like.
I mean, he's like standing up for himself once like he gets caught doing it, and he's fighting the dad. He's like sticking his foot on the ground and calling his dad out.
And even Sasaki too. He well, obviously he didn't even tell his family about losing his job and stuff like that. So
it's funny, like as far as Ryuhei is all about maintaining the fatherly authority, and then is like butchering down like, I'm the dad, you do what I say. Nobody in the family respects that at all,
because there's a deterioration of communication in the family. So like there's no sense of like respect. What are you doing? What am I doing? There's no communication. There's no like a sharing of ideas.
Just like go off on a whim.
Yeah, they just come back home all of a sudden. No one knows what they did. They just eat. They don't even like ask like what did you do today? Why is the house like all destroyed? They're just like, oh, okay, I guess this is how it is. You have
exams coming up. Good luck. It's like the only insightful. Oh, it was like what? Just family related commentary we kind of saw. Pretty much tackled that all the way. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely 100% family drama. I would say maybe this one more so than Till A Time to Live.
It's very focused, honed in the family, I think. And I think it really does a good job of like drawing all these threads together into some.
Because I mean, the family isn't just one person. It's a group of people. Right. Whereas we just kind of focused on one character in A Time to Live and A Time to Die.
Yeah, it was more subtle. I think it's like the character and the family surrounding it for A Time to Live and A Time to Die. For this one, it's more like individual threads kind of coming together and going back out and coming together.
Right. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. I mean, kind of drawing comparisons or differences between this and the last movie we saw, but we just answered that. Yeah. Did you
like this film? Did you enjoy the film?
I did. like I said, it definitely just caught me by surprise and what the film actually was.
Yeah.
I didn't really expect it to be this, I don't know, metaphorical and outside of a traditional narrative
Yeah.
than compared to what it was. But I think all things considered, it works. I mean, diving into nitpicks, just maybe I felt the balance of like Miss Reality goes a little comical and too far. But that's just a me thing. But only because like it just like again, I was kind of unexpected, and then it set an expectation to be very grounded, just to be sort of experimental by the end.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay,
Yeah. I mean, I didn't mind it. I actually enjoyed it just because.
it was entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. It is entertaining. It kind of, like I said in the very beginning, like you don't know what's gonna happen next.
Yeah.
Like I did not expect that to happen, right? You know, like I didn't expect the robber to come out of nowhere and like all those different things like kind of culminating together, which I think is good for a film where like, well, where it keeps the audience guessing and it keeps the audience kind of on their toes, which is a good thing. I feel like so.
Yeah, I mean, like post watching it, like it is a good movie, and the pacing is just interesting too, though. Like once, like just talking about it now and post watching it, it's like such a weird, like just the structure and just looking outside of it, like getting from point A to point C, like it's like how did that happen? Like it just has such a subtle and gradual movement.
Right,
Yeah, it does catch you by surprise, but it all like welds together nicely. That nothing really stands out kind of as an outlier. But it does, and like even to the ending, like it just kind of reels you back in such a calming and like different way compared to like what you just watched, you know. Again, it's very calming, and it's very like a breather kind of moment, you know?
I feel like Japanese films have that kind of quality to them where it's very subtle or like a very calm feeling in the majority of their films. Or even like in the Fable, like a lot of it feels very like calm, kind of you know, like restrained in it almost, you know?
Yeah, like I mean, funny, like the Japanese sort of nuances
Right.
kind of has a reservation, you know? And you see that in
A lot of the films. And
not all.
yeah, and so like it's cool to be able to glean like information from that, right? And like if you kind of pay attention a little bit more, you can find little subtle like moments or like things that really talk to or tell about the character, like you mentioned about the wife and the pull me up, like those kind of moments. So subtle and so like it's not a crazy big thing, you know, or like when, you know, Sasaki has a nightmare, or like, you know, like, or even just like when Kenji just staring at the piano teacher, or when the parents are at the audition and they're just looking at him, and like it's like a good like 15 seconds of just holding frame on just them two, and like they almost have like tears in their eyes, and you're just kind of like looking at them. I think those moments are very powerful, and like it's very subtle, it's very calm, but it has a certain meaning to it. Like it invokes like meaning.
Yeah, it's like there's so much, it's so simple and subtle, but there's so much depth to it.
Yeah.
And I think what kind of has it going for is that the ominousity about it, you know, because you can't ever really pinpoint the intent of that shot or of that action or reaction of what they're doing.
It makes you guess, right?
Exactly.
It makes you think about, okay, what does that mean? You know?
So there's just so many things to kind of dig through in that moment.
Yeah, like I think those are like the beauty of like cinema and what like cinema can do, what like movies can do, you know, because everything else is, you know, if it's interpreted for you, it's not as fun as when you're interpreting it yourself. And like the way that we can talk about these things, it's more fun, right? When it's not told like explicitly, just this is this, you know what I mean? But like, oh, it could be this or it could be that. Even like the moment when you know, Sasaki goes to his friend's house to eat, and then like we talked about the daughter and like what could that mean? You know, like all of those things like make it so much more interesting and like engaging, like to talk about even. So I think in that sense, this movie did a really good job. And also, you know, relating to the movie that we watched before, I feel like the movie that we watched before does that too. Yeah. And so I think that's why it made it such an engaging film as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you look back at it, when you talk about it and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, it's leave me questioning.
Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing like crazy flashy that they did, right? Even in this film or the film that we watched before.
Correct.
Definitely nothing crazy, no crazy camera work, like no like, fisheye, like
It's no good, bad, and the
there's
weird.
nothing nothing crazy that they really did, but they're able to, engage the audience by making us think and making us wonder about
Yeah.
the story and the characters and their mindset and like what that means and like the greater, meaning of that.
Yeah. I think that's something that we will see a lot of in the series, particularly because that's just kind of what family dramas are.
Yeah,
and
I
what
think that's the
dramas-
fun of like watching family dramas.
Right. It's just so layered.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just so many things you can talk about and you can kind of critique or just dive in and analyze. Like I said, like kind of we said in the very beginning, it's families are messy, Families like a gray area. There's no black or white when it comes to a family topic.
Yeah.
So there's so many different dimensions to what a family is and who it is and all these different things. So it's a discussion worthy topic.
Yeah. Yeah. You enjoyed this film?
It's a good enjoy.
It's a good recommend or no?
It is a good recommend, but maybe it is more of a film buff. I mean, it is 100% a film buff recommendation. To an everyday person, though, maybe not. I would say. I think it is just too slow paced for just anybody, though.
It does take a while to come.
Yeah. And even like we said, it's so, and when it is revved, it's still elusive in a way. It's still slow. It takes its time showing those things. It's not like it's
a very calm descent into chaos.
Yeah. Like even the chaos isn't flashy.
It's not crazy. Yeah. It's not like, that's why I'm saying like if it took a little bit more, like it pushed itself, it would go into Parasite territory. That's what I'm saying.
It's like Quentin Tarantino level, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you I'm saying there is the ingredients for something like that to happen. I feel like in this film, if they went that route, but clearly they didn't, and I think this is a great film of it in and of itself.
Yeah. Like apparently, like Kurosawa, this movie I think is a very big trend, like very big change for him because prior to this movie, he is a prominent horror director, I believe. Most of his filmography, what people know him from, are from like in the quote unquote horror genre, and like talk about like paranormal and kind of that area. So just like, and like from like the interviews and Q&As that I've seen from him, people are very much like, is this sort of like a place that you kind of want to transition into more of like a genre? Or like, oh, it's so interesting to see that you can kind of, do this movie and then sort of it's opposite from, but you can kind of still see like his taste and sort of his directorness like into that. And it's very interesting to see like this movie coming out of maybe someone who's prominent in horror to say.
Yeah, there are certain moments of tension, I feel like, where like you kind of have a certain, especially like keeping secrets and being they're having secrets. Lend itself to being in an element of suspense, and like how far you can push until that that balloon will pop.
That's kind of like a funny because like it's a masterful thing to do, but it can be kind of a tricky thing to do as well.
Right.
But done right, it's a great result.
Yeah.
I mean, any closing thoughts or?
Overall, I really enjoyed the film. Watching it.
Who would you recommend it to?
If you want to watch a deter, why are you laughing, man?
It's just like anybody out there.
Yeah, I mean, I recommend it to anyone. Honestly, I think give it a try, and if you don't like it, then maybe, that's too bad.
Right.
That's too bad for you, man. But I think it's definitely recommendable. Like I think it's worth a shot.
Well, it's funny, like you said, because Parasite is just such a great feat by itself. But like it's such a great feat because like it's a gateway to these movies. You know, it can be a gateway to like if you like Parasite, then watch this. Like,
Well,
give this a shot. Why not?
I think my comparison to Parasite made it sound like it's like Parasite, but this is nothing like Parasite.
No, I know it's nothing like Parasite for sure, but I'm saying like, I think if you can sit through like if you enjoyed Parasite, you know, there's no reason to diss this movie.
Right. I think like the elements of like deterioration of family is still here. You know what I mean? It's still in this as well. It's just a different take on it. I feel like, and a more subtle take on it.
And it's a very different movie all together. You know, but still, I think it's like besides the fact that it has its parallels, it's just
I think it's a fun movie to watch. Like, if you invest yourself into it and really like watch it, you'll kind of start wondering about what's going on and like all of these things, and like it makes the audience engaged, and I think that makes a good movie, regardless of what genre it might be.
Right. What genre would you categorize this movie as?
Family drama, bro. What are you talking about?
It's very deep. It's very deep. Yeah, this movie is just family drama. Like, I don't think I could.
This is like the epitome of family drama.
I couldn't even give it any other genre title. No. Coming of what? Family?
Coming of realization of what a family means.
Comedy?
Yeah, some elements of it were like comedy, bro. I was like, what is going on, man? This is like that when the thief came, I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's just so not normal that it is comical, like I said.
Yeah, it was a fun movie to watch. I do recommend it. Give it a watch. I don't think you'll find it disappointing, hopefully.
To each his own.
Yeah.
Agreed. What is next? Actually, that's a good question. What is next? It's your pick. Obviously.
It's probably mine. Miracle.
Miracle number 7.
Yeah,
or 9.
Number 7. Yeah,
Number 7.
Miracle and Room Number 7. I think it's the American title.
South
or English title.
Yeah, it was like 2012, 2010, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Disclaimer: this one is a very different kind of family drama.
Is it even a family drama?
Yes, we can talk about that when we.
This may be the most distant of, I guess, kind of.
It may be the most unconventional family drama, I guess. Yeah. Like, not the typical thing that you think about when you talk about a family drama. You can talk. It's a lot of it is very what genre would you put it in?
It's like, I haven't seen it, but it looks like a comedy.
There's comedy, there's family, there's also like finding out the truth of what's happening. So it's kind of like a detective kind of element to it too.
But I would lump that into drama because it doesn't really fall into like a thriller or
It's not all the way thriller.
Yeah.
It is more like a drama, I guess. And the word drama is so like all encompassing that it's kind of hard to just like say drama. Right. But yeah, it is that. but it is that. Yeah. And like it's not a typical family, so.
Yeah. It should be interesting. And then we can get into my third.
Yes. And then we'll finally skip over to the boring set of films. I'm just kidding.
I think my films are just like Tokyo Sonata, but
no, I enjoyed Tokyo Sonata. So if there's more of these kinds of films, I would love it.
They're definitely not as like
crazy.
Yeah.
More grounded. More
100%. There's
more realism.
1,000% so. Except like I can't vouch for A Son though because I haven't seen it. But I assume. I assume. So next week will be Miracle in Room Number 7.
Yes.
Actually, wait, before we go, just see where you can find this. Where do you think you can find this?
Miracle in Cell Number 7, not Room Number 7.
In Cell Number 7. Legally. He's like,
Prime? No.
yeah,
The third one was like Prime Video, maybe.
no, but I think
Oh, is it Rent?
could be. Well, we have to find out.
Dude, it got 5 stars. Everyone loved this film.
Oh, it's only available in Korea though.
Oh,
It's not
okay.
available in your location.
VPN that, bro.
Some bull to the shite, mate.
VPN is your best friend.
Veepin. Is it on Netflix English?
Oh,
What? This has to be old though.
maybe.
I think so.
Do you have
No, why-
Netflix? Try it. Maybe it's on Netflix. This film is a tearjerker, so if you like those films. Oh, that's a category, right? That's a genre.
What is this? What?
Oh wow, it's like a
What
completely
is this?
different.
What is this?
Is it like a
It's a-
remake?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like, I think a German remake.
Wow.
Das Blut. Was it King?
I don't know who that is.
Probably not. Just kidding.
Yeah, it's not on
Not to
Netflix.
say Miracle Number
Unless you want to watch this one too.
6. We will not be talking about that one though.
Yeah, the Korean one.
The Korean one. Okay, yeah. So if you're on Netflix, it's not Miracle Number 7 on Netflix. Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck. So yeah, so that'll be next week. Thank you guys.
Yep.
Deuces.
We'll see you guys around